Hey there, and welcome. So, if you've ever used a modern website, you've definitely interacted with this kind of invisible engine that's running the whole show behind the scenes. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most popular web engines out there, Express.js.
You know how it is, right? You click a link, you fill out a form, you see your profile page just appear. It kind of feels like magic. But what is actually going on over there on the server? How does a website know what to show you and when? That's exactly what we're going to unpack. So we're going to treat this whole thing like a project journey. We'll start with the basics, the tools, then create the blueprint. After that, we'll give our project a memory, teach it how to direct traffic, bring its pages to life, and then finally, get it ready for the whole world to see. All right, every single project starts with having the right tools. So, before we even think about building anything, we really need to understand what Express.js is and where it fits into a developer's tooltip.
The best thing about Express is that it's not some brand new language you have to learn. Nope, it's a framework that's written in JavaScript, which means if you already know some JS, you're well on your way. It runs inside an environment called Node.js, and that gives developers a huge head start when they're building the backend of an application.
So, why even use a framework at all? Well, imagine trying to build a house using nothing but raw lumber and a box of nails. I mean, you could do it, but it would be incredibly slow and complicated. Express is like using pre-built scaffolding. It gives you the core structure and handles all the common, repetitive tasks, which frees you up to focus on what makes your application special.
And the foundation for all of this stuff? It's Node.js. See, for years, JavaScript was kind of stuck in the browser. It was the paint job, right? It handled animations and making things interactive on the page. But Node.js was a total game changer. It let developers use that exact same JavaScript to build the powerful server engine that runs everything behind the scenes.
All right, so now that we get the tools, let's see how a project actually starts to take shape. It's time to create the initial blueprint for our application. Every great construction project begins with a really solid plan. And web development, that means first setting up your environment. Then you create what's called a skeleton project, which is really just the basic folders and files you're going to need. And then you run a quick test just to make sure that foundation is solid before you start building everything else on top of it.
Okay, so we've got our structure, our skeleton, but a website isn't just a bunch of empty pages, right? If we're building a local library website, for example, it needs to store information about all the books, the authors, the members. Where does it keep all that data?
The answer, of course, is a database. You can think of it as the application's brain, or maybe a super organized digital filing cabinet. It's what provides the project's long-term memory.
So for our local library, this digital filing cabinet would store absolutely everything. Lists of book titles, details about every author, who borrowed what book, you get the idea. Without this database, all that crucial information would just, poof, disappear every single time the server restarted. But how does our Express app actually talk to that database? Well, we use a tool called Mongoose. It basically acts as a bridge, or maybe a translator. Instead of writing really complex database commands, developers can just work with simple JavaScript objects, which makes the code way cleaner, much more structured, and a lot less likely to have errors. Okay, our app has a structure and it has a memory. Now we've got to handle all the incoming traffic. When a user visits a specific web address, how does the application know what to show them? Well, this is all managed by a system of routes and controllers.
The easiest way to think about your website's routes is like a traffic cop. When a request comes flying in from a browser, the router takes a look at the URL and directs that request to the exact piece of code that's designed to handle it.
And here's what that looks like in practice. If a user goes to the /books page, the router sends them to the function that shows all the books. Simple. If they go to /authors, it directs them to the list of all the authors. It's this really clean, organized system for handling every possible thing a user might ask for. We are almost there. We've got our data, and we know how to route user requests. The final piece of this whole puzzle is to actually combine those two things and show a finished page to the user. This is where templates come in, and I love this analogy. Think of them like Mad Libs for a web page. Seriously, a developer creates a page layout, but with these little placeholders for, say, the book title or the author name, it's a structure that's just sitting there, waiting for the real data to be dropped right in.
And this all comes together in 3 simple steps. First, the controller goes and fetches the information it needs from the database. Second, it takes that data and plugs it into the template's blank spaces. And what you get is a final, complete HTML page that then gets sent right back to the user's browser for them to see.
So we've built a fully functional web application on our own computer. That's awesome. But the real goal is to share it with the world. And this final step is all about going live.
This process is called deployment. It's the official launch. It's where you take all your code from your private, personal computer and put it onto a public web server. This is the step that makes your local library website accessible to its members from literally anywhere with an internet connection.
But of course, building the first version is never really the end of the story, is it? A real-world application needs more. You need user logins, you've got to handle permissions, you need forms for adding new data, and of course, layers and layers of testing and security. The learning journey is this continuous, really exciting adventure. So, we've demystified the engine behind modern websites. You now have the blueprint for how an idea turns into a live, working application using Express.js. The only question left is, what will you create? Thanks for joining me.